the big day approached, I began to feel really nervous. Not about the impending nuptials. I mean, I was sure that now that I'd got him, I was keeping him. But I was feeling that I would be emotional, you know, in the church and at the actual point of the ceremony. And I took quite a couple of minutes to speak to the priest, Father David. Some of you might know. He was the guy from Dunoon. He's now the priest in Gilphead. I explained to him my feelings and how nervous I felt. And he looked kindly upon me and said, "Pamela, let me give you a little advice. Firstly, when you arrive at the church, concentrate on the aisle. Look straight ahead, don't look at faces, just look at the aisle. When you get to the front, you'll see the altar, and on the altar you'll see candles and flowers. Just look at the altar, concentrate on the altar. And then I'll announce a wee hymn, we'll sing the hymn, and then we'll sit down and you'll not feel nervous anymore. Can you remember that?" I says, "Yes, Father, I think I can." And as I tell you this, as I walked down the aisle towards my beloved that day, I repeated this advice from Father David over in my head. Aisle, altar, hymn. And I think I have managed it. While in Honeymoon, I decided to be a reasonable woman and start as I meant to go on. And I compiled a list for Brian to make it easy for him. I'm an understanding woman and I appreciate that I have a tendency to say nothing when obviously everything is wrong. So I thought I'd make it easy for Brian and give him a list, and the list goes as follows. It's not in kind of order of importance, because I was on my honeymoon and I had other things to do. But it started off, "Dear Brian, all I want for you to make me happy is as follows. A friend, a companion, a lover, a brother, and a father. And a master, a chef, an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, a mechanic, a decorator, a stylist, a sexologist, a gynecologist, a physiologist, a pest exterminator, and a psychiatrist. I would like you to be athletic, warm, attentive, gallant, intelligent, funny, creative, tender, strong, understanding, tolerant, prudent, ambitious, capable, courageous, determined, true, dependable, passionate, and compassionate."
1 out of 40, isn't it?
"Could you also give me compliments regularly, learn to love shopping, be very honest, be very rich, and remember, don't stress me out. As the great philosopher Alexander the Meerkat says, simples." Burns certainly knew how to make a woman happy. He reckoned it lay in inconsistency. I think the term used in modern days is play it mean and keep 'em keen. He thought it good to shake things up a bit, change things around. Unfortunately for Jean Armour, his loving and faithful wife, that also meant changing his partner. Not so much from time to time, but more time and time again. And he classed this as romantic. In an effort to explain his inconsistency, stroke romantic side to the woman he loved, he opted to put it in a poem. "Let not woman e'er complain of inconsistency in love. Let not woman e'er complain, fickle man is apt to rove. Why then ask of silly man to oppose great nature's plan? We'll be constant while we can be no more, you know." Whoa, what words. How lucky must the woman in his life feel? Anne, Alison, Katie, Mary, Jeanie, Cloris, Clarinda, Nancy, Nell, Molly, Polly, Peggy, to name but a few. They should be truly grateful that he went to such great lengths to help them understand his romantic streak. At least he never hid his love for other women. Perhaps his honesty was what gave him leeway with Jean to live and love the way he did. I'm not like Jean, by the way. I think the key to marriage today is know exactly what you're dealing with. A man may think he's clever, but a woman knows she's clever. A man doesn't think a woman's dumb. He's not that silly. He just thinks he's cleverer than his wife. Some of you may know Jim McMillan. He's the bank manager in Inverary and he did the Mortal Memory here a couple of years ago. And I saw Jim rushing to his car one morning, and Jim's not a man that rushes, do you know. Jim's very leisurely, but on this morning he was most certainly rushing to his car. And I thought it strange, and later on in the day I bumped into his wife Isabel. And I mentioned Jim's rush to her. She acknowledged with a wry smile and said, "Well, it's like this. We had a wee Barney over the telly the other night, and I was giving him the silent treatment, as you do." She said, "Well, he thought he'd be smart and give me the silent treatment back. As I went to turn the light out in the kitchen to go to bed, I spotted a note by the kettle saying, 'I need to leave at 7. Can you wake me, please?' So, at 7 AM, I crept out the bed, careful not to disturb them, and wrote in the same note, 'At 7 AM, wake up.'" Men are just not equipped for these types of contests, but to be fair, it doesn't stop them trying. It's a basic understanding. Women survive marriage by letting the other half think they have the upper hand. It goes way back to the dawning of time in the Garden of Eden, when, would you believe, God created Eve first. Eve called out to God one day, "Lord, I have a problem." "What's the problem, Eve?" God replied. "Lord, I know you created this wonderful garden and fabulous animals, and I must say that comedy snake was a stroke of genius, but I'm just not happy. I'm bored, I'm lonely, and to be quite frank, I'm sick to death of apples." "Well," said God, "I have a solution. I shall create man for you." "Well, what's a man?" said Eve. "Man is a flawed creature with many bad traits. He will lie and cheat and be vain. He will give you a hard time, but he'll be bigger and faster than you. He will hunt and kill things. He will look silly when aroused, but I will create him in a way that will satisfy your physical needs. He will be witless and will revel in childish things, like fighting and kicking a ball around. He won't be too smart. He will need your advice on many occasions. What to wear, what's for dinner, what time you have to leave to go anywhere. He will need your advice to think properly." "Sounds perfect to me, and enough to keep me busy," said Eve. "What's the catch?" "Well," said God, "he will also be proud and arrogant and self-admiring, so you will have to let him think I created him first. Just remember, it's our little secret. You know, woman to woman." I'm sure it's just a rumour and no truth in it whatsoever, but I've heard it told that when Burns died on the 21st of July, 1796, he had made Jean a promise to gather up all his money and put it in the coffin to be spent in the afterlife. At the funeral, just as the coffin was being lowered, Jean placed inside a box. Her oldest daughter, Bess, leant over and said, "Mammy, you didn't really do it, did you? We could have used that money." Jean looked at her daughter with sadness in her eyes. "I made your father a promise on his deathbed. I'm a Christian, and I will keep my promises. But I was a little worried about grave robbers, so I put the money in my bank and wrote him a cheque, and he can cash it." Despite Burns's misdemeanours, and there were many, he married and loved above all Jean, mother of 9 of his 12 children. She stood by him through all his faults. She brought up children not hers by birth, but widely suspected of being a descendant of her husband's, and he loved her enough to make an honest woman of her. Of marriage, Burns as always had many beautiful words. She asked why wedding rings are made of gold. I ventured this to instruct her. Why, madam, love and lighting are the same. On earth they glance, from heaven they came. Love is soul's electric flame, and gold its best conductor. For all men that avoid marriage, I would say to them, remember, gentlemen, there is only one thing worse than being a bachelor, and that's being a bachelor's son. And ladies, when the time comes for you to find yourself a man, do not be afraid of looking for one that needs improving. Write him a list, allow him the upper hand, and remember how far women have come. After all, All men started off as monkeys.